Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wrap Technologies webcast today, talking about a very, very exciting issue and partnership that we're working on. And, you know, it's very, very easy for people to sit back and point blame and riot and protest and complain about things, but it's much more difficult to come up with solutions. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is solutions and how we deal with these big issues that are confronting not only our country, but literally most people around the world. And we're going to jump into it. So I'll remind everyone that during this webcast, if you have any questions that you want to have our group address, to please go into the Q&A tab at the bottom and enter your questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And if we can't get to all of them, we'll follow up with you after the webcast. This should last about 30 minutes today. And again, this is a super important topic. Something we're very excited about is providing solutions. And the two people joining me today are people that come up with solutions, and we're going to have a great discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to do a quick video introing their backgrounds, and then we'll get right into the meat of the discussion.
We have a special guest joining us now, Reverend Markell Hutchins. Now, he really organized the rally that I had a chance to attend.
We still have unresolved issues in America around race. The issues that we must change in America have to happen at the highest levels of our government. They have to happen in our private industry. They have to happen in our faith community, in our schools, in our homes.
Over the last several years, technology, most especially social media, has been used to divide law enforcement and community in many ways.
The time is now to come together, to lay aside whatever differences we might think we have, because in doing so, we'll find that there's more that unites all of us than there is that divides us. There is no limit to the good that we can achieve if we work together.
Being a chief in 2017, particularly in a big city, a couple things come to mind. It's been challenging, it's been rewarding, and sometimes it's been rather daunting. It's a lot going on in policing in this day and age. When you talk to colleagues around the country, and you do that frequently, one of the themes that does come up is the challenges for the climate we're in today. I've had people like my friend, mentor, and predecessor, Chuck Ramsey, who was outlining the fact that in 17 years of being a police chief for him, he's never seen it more difficult than it is right now.
Welcome, retired Commissioner Richard Ross, Philadelphia Police Department, and Reverend Markell Hutchins. Pleasure to have both of you on this morning and talking about this super, super important issue to our country. And kind of everything that was said in that video really strikes home for where we're at today. And Commissioner, you were looking at these issues for a long time, and I think honestly it is the toughest time for policing. And you're talking to chiefs all over the country. You know, we're hearing defund the police, we're hearing all these issues, and we really need to get people to work together, which is why this Faith in Blue initiative is such a great opportunity for us. So what are you hearing when you're talking to the chiefs and the challenges they're facing with those community relationships?
Well, I mean, Tom, if you look over the last, particularly 7 years or so, you've seen this climate become more and more challenging for law enforcement, particularly as it relates to trying to have connectivity between police and community, something that is absolutely vital. And the Reverend said it best: you can't have this divide in this nation. Otherwise, we're never going to move forward. First, there has to be an acknowledgement that there are issues in this country regarding race, and that transcends even law enforcement, but certainly as it relates to law enforcement and its dealings with communities of color. I mean, the first step is that realization that there are issues. The next step is to work collaboratively, to get together, to acknowledge their issues, not to put our heads in the sand, but also not to work against each other, because we need each other. Law enforcement needs community, community needs law enforcement, and I think there are enough people out there who recognize that and who are willing to roll their sleeves up and say, what can we do to make things better? I think you've seen across this nation in the last couple of years or so, particularly in big cities, you've seen a precipitous decline even in police-related shootings. There are still problems. I don't think anyone would try to suggest that, not anyone who's objective anyway. But I think those declines are indicative of the fact that work is being done in a positive way, but we just have more work to do.
Yes, sir. And you know, it's a huge issue that this country is trying to tackle right now. And Reverend, I met you a year ago almost at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. And obviously we had no idea what was in store for 2020, but you know, here you are being an activist working on these issues and trying to get communities to come together, which is why I'm so excited about this project that you're spearheading. And if you can talk about that and then kind of walk us through exactly what this weekend is, because this isn't going to be resolved at a federal level, as we've discussed. This is going to be resolved at the state and local levels, and that's what your intent is with this initiative.
There really is more that unites Americans together than there is that divides us. And I think what we have witnessed over the last several years is an increased effort to divide Americans, particularly when it comes to police community issues. We have had some really terrible tragedies involving police officers and people, particularly people of color, most especially African-American men. But I think what the death of George Floyd has done for our nation is really revealed not just to community people, not just to people of color, but to all of the American people, that there are some challenges that must be addressed. And as you suggested, we cannot do those in silos. We have got to come together at tables of sisterhood and brotherhood in neighborhoods, in communities across the United States of America. There won't be any real change if people simply sit in their individual corners and yell at each other, "Our lives matter," "No, our lives matter." Until we come together and reason together, we'll continue to see the kinds of tragedies that we've seen in Minneapolis, that we saw just yesterday in Wisconsin, that we saw when the officers in Dallas were assassinated several years ago. There's just too much division in our country. But the truth is, we're not nearly as divided as we are disconnected. What National Faith in Blue Weekend does is it provides a mechanism for communities and law enforcement to connect together. And I cannot tell you how proud we are to partner with WRAP around these issues, because your core premise or principle as a business is to give law enforcement professionals a way of de-escalating and diffusing situations without utilizing deadly force. And that is exactly what our communities need right now. We have, as the commissioner suggested, we've seen a decline in law enforcement involved tragedies, but we've seen an increase in attacks against law enforcement professionals. The core objective of National Faith in Blue Weekend is to facilitate safer and stronger and more united communities by engaging law enforcement professionals directly with those whom they're sworn to protect and serve in local communities across this country.
And I think one of the great things that I really like here, again, this is something that somebody's not just going to command from Washington, D.C. This is going to have to be done locally. And
Absolutely.
Can you talk about all the different police organizations that are involved in this? I mean, it's a who's list of law enforcement.
Well, I think there's a recognition in America today, particularly among law enforcement, that they cannot solve the problems that Americans have with law enforcement by themselves. They've got to have local ambassadors, local emissaries, and this is a unanimous project for law enforcement. Every major national law enforcement membership and professional association is involved and a co-organizer of National Faith in Blue Weekend, including the 3 entities in the federal government that deal most directly with local policing: the COPS office, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Office of Justice Programs, and the largest law enforcement agency in our country, the Department of Homeland Security. Plus, you've got all of the organizations, ICP, or the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Fraternal Order of Police, the National Sheriff's Association, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the Hispanic Command Officers Association. Literally, all of the major national law enforcement organizations are partnered together for the first time in American history on a police community engagement project. And National Faith in Blue Weekend is not simply an event. This is intended to spur ongoing collaboration. We are literally powering a movement where law enforcement professionals and residents will work collaboratively to decrease bias, to increase familiarity, to break down bias, and spur ongoing collaboration in local neighborhoods. Police cannot solve the challenges that we face on community relations side or on crime and violence side without having the engagement of local communities. And because the faith community provides a gateway into local neighborhoods, we're working with the faith community. You and I discussed before, Commissioner Ross, that there are no other
organizations, no fraternal organizations, no sororities or anything like that that have the same level of influence as the faith-based community. There are 350,000 houses of worship in the United States of America, and 65 million Americans attend some form of weekly service at a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple or some faith-based organizations. Those houses of worship provide unrivaled access into the local communities and the local neighborhoods, and they're a resource that law enforcement should be able to tap into in order to address crime and violence issues, as well as to build and in some instances rebuild the trust. Look, police officers have got to know the people that they're policing on a human level, and the people in those communities have got to know the officers on a human level, and that can only happen through engagement and experience, getting to know one another. That is the only way we're going to see a decrease in the kinds of tragedies that we've seen, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many other tragedies that have divided our country in such a detrimental way.
You know, Reverend, you said something that I really like, and that was that it's not an event. And it's so critical that when law enforcement partners with any agency or entity, that you have sustainability, which is one of the things I used to talk about all the time. So, you know, police, civilians are always looking for something to be that fly-by-night thing, and then it's going to go away. There's no significant commitment to it. And so I applaud you for that. In addition to which, when you talk about getting to know communities, you know, I used to talk to Chuck Ramsey, and he would say to me all the time, you know, police officers have an obligation to know the difference between the team and the gangbanger, the difference between the person that's out there mentoring people, that's out there helping people, the block captain, and everyone else involved. And I've seen how you can leverage the clergy, you know, because your voices resonate in a way that most don't. And so what you're doing right now is significant for this country. And I think we're going to see some tremendous inroads as we work together collaboratively to try to make this country better, to make a more cohesive connection between police and community. So I'm excited about what you're doing. I'm excited about the fact that, you know, you're pulling all these people together, and I think great things are going to come from it.
There's not just a willingness, but there is a passion in law enforcement. There's a yearning. I think law enforcement professionals in large communities and small towns as well recognize that they can't solve these problems by themselves. There is a clear willingness to change. We have to be willing in communities. You know, Commissioner, I've spent the bulk of my life and public career advocating against police misconduct, advocating and marching against police brutality. And so as I see it, what we need in America today is not simply more marching and protesting, and all those things are wonderful, but at some point we've got to come together and actually solve problems. And these problem-solving sessions have got to take place in every local community and in every local neighborhood. The solutions to the challenges we face in America today when it comes to police community engagement, they will not be written in a policy and procedures manual. They will not be written in a piece of legislation. They will not be written in the ink of an executive order. The solutions to the challenges we face in America today when it comes to police community issues will be imprinted in the hearts and minds of every law enforcement professional and every citizen alike. Far too often, police officers don't know the people that they're policing on a human level. They don't know the culture. They don't know the community. They don't know the language, and vice versa. Far too often, community members don't know these law enforcement professionals beyond their badge and their gun. And until we address those level of strains, until we address those deficiencies, we'll continue to see George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the other tragedies that we've seen. The only way forward is a collaborative way, is a healing and reconciliation way, and that's what National Faith in Blue Weekend is all about. And the identities of local communities are very different. So the issues that face Charleston, South Carolina, or Albany, Georgia, are very different than the issues that face your department, Philadelphia, or New York City, or Chicago. That's why it's so important that these local communities, these local faith-based communities, reach out to law enforcement, and law enforcement reach out to them and solve the problems that they face in their local communities together as a unit.
You know what, Reverend, and something you said really resonated with me when you're talking about getting at that human level. I mean, because sometimes you have things that occur where people are dehumanizing each other.
Absolutely.
You know, that makes it so easy, you know, not to work together and come to the table together. One of the things that I'm really excited about, and I talk about it in our calls a lot, is the fact that you're seeing a lot of very progressive police departments, progressive chiefs who understand not only the need to hold their officers accountable, because this is what your job is as a CEO of any organization, but also to understand that you have to, in order to move the ball forward in what we do today, you have to be willing to collaborate with people out there, to include, even though there are a multitude of policies, as you suggested, even including working with them. You know, we did that in Philadelphia and made some changes to our body-worn camera policy as a result of some clergy folks who were progressive in that nature. But the big thing is to understand the need to work together, the need to be progressive. And I think that's the only thing that's going to help us move this ball forward during these tumultuous times that we're dealing with.
And faith-based organizations are safe space. They're space where officers and law enforcement executives feel safe to express themselves and to be honest and open and transparent, and vice versa. Community members feel safe and feel secure to be open in within the context of the faith-based community. And that's why we're working in that space. There's nothing inherently religious about what it is that we're doing. But again, the faith community represents the diverse backgrounds of every local community, every local neighborhood. The faith-based community in a neighborhood typically represents the culture and the character, the vibrancy of that local community. And they are a resource that law enforcement should tap into in order to deal with the issues that are facing that local community in that local neighborhood. And really, you know, I am one that believes that the death of George Floyd has given America a gift. It has given us an opportunity. Unfortunately, the unfortunate circumstances surrounding his death have given us a tool and a platform and a resource where there's an acknowledgement across the board that there need to be some changes. Changes need to happen, but because we do not live where there is a nationalized police force, these changes have to happen in every local community and in every local neighborhood. And I would hope that the people that have joined us today would get involved as WRAP has done and take the lead. There's just too much division among us today. We will not solve our problems with some of us standing in one corner yelling and screaming and the others of us screaming back. That is not our pathway forward. Our path forward is collaborative, it is healing, and it's solution focused. And National Faith in Blue Weekend gets us started along that path.
And you know, I've made my career actually trying to get tools to help diffuse these situations, to protect and save lives and make a difference. And that BolaWrap's just the next step in that generation of technology that it's the only tool that doesn't hurt people, right? We can stop somebody from 10 to 25 feet away and give the opportunity to stop before it escalates to these higher levels of force. And Reverend, you mentioned Wisconsin yesterday and Louisiana. You know, we see these situations all around the country, and that's why this initiative is so important to what we're doing as a company with WRAP. And you only have 3 companies really involved in the sponsorship here and in making sure this initiative goes forward. Can you talk briefly about the toolkit that's available for the local departments to use, or the communities to get involved, to get these relationships discussed, and to start putting that effort forward?
Let me say this, Tom, and I certainly will review the toolkit, but when we were looking at who to partner with from a corporate community that would help us to underwrite the cost of planning and organizing National Faith in Blue Weekend across the country, there were only a handful of potential companies that we would that we would seek to partner with. And WRAP Technologies is an ideal partner for us because of your BolaWrap product. It is so perfectly aligned, and I can't say thank you enough to you and to Mark and to all of your colleagues for stepping up and actually being a part of the solutions that our country needs. In so many instances, corporate leaders are window dressing. They are saying all the right things, but are not actually placing their resources in places that can really make a difference. We have seen in America too much demonizing on all sides of these issues, too much demonizing of law enforcement and too much demonizing of people in the streets who are demanding justice. We have to do what Dr. King said. We have to call our nation to a higher plateau of destiny and a more noble expression of humaneness. And that's what National Faith in Blue Weekend is all about. And as you suggested, we have a best-in-class web portal that provides every resource that is needed for a local law enforcement agency, for a community member, a house of worship, or civic organization, or even a business leader to get involved, to actually host an event that brings community and law enforcement together through the faith-based community. And again, I cannot say enough how unprecedented it is to have all of the major national law enforcement organizations involved in this project. But if your viewers, if folks that have joined us today, will go to faithandblue.org, faithandblue.org, they'll see there's a toolkit that provides every tool and resource that is necessary. There are planning steps in the toolkit so that anyone can plan in activities. There are sample activities, everything from a peace and justice march to a barbecue to an art event. And all of these things can be done either in person, virtually, or in a socially distanced way. There's a checklist for getting started. There's sample media advisories. There are answers to frequently asked questions, literally everything that is needed to plan an event for Faith in Blue. With the help of WRAP Technologies, we've been able to provide that to the American people. On that web portal, you'll see there's sample resources you'll see on the screen. There's an e-card. You can order t-shirts that will have the logos and all of the information for the national movement on the front, and local departments or local agencies or local people can put their own logos on the back. There is a one-page overview right there on the home page. Literally everything that is needed to organize a Faith in Blue activity can be found at faithandblue.org. As well, in the coming weeks, there will be an event, find an event tab where folks will be able to both find an event and host an event. Just a wealth of resources are going to be available in the next 2 weeks on faithandblue.org, but you can go there right now, right today, and sign up to host an event, find all these wonderful resources. And again, all of these things are made available to you because of our relationship with WRAP and our other corporate partners.
And obviously that's the mission for WRAP, is our push of trying to de-escalate and make it safer for the officer, safer for the community members, safer for everyone involved. And Commissioner, you know, the Reverend talked about the organizations, and again, I think it's pretty much everyone in the U.S. I've seen so far that people know. You know, that's kind of unprecedented. I mean, you coming out of a major city, and you kind of know that from a major city to a rural county to, you know, a 5-man agency versus, you know, the 1,000-man agencies. This is across the board that the Reverend has been able to pull these groups together to really support this. And from our perspective, that's why we felt it was important to be one of those 3 companies to really push this, to help solve those community issues. And, you know, we're going to be doing and discussing with our local department and customers that are using our products about demonstrating it so that consumers know what it is. But from your perspective, talking to the major chiefs, how do you see this impacting? And I don't think this has ever been attempted before at a national level, like what this Faith in Blue Weekend is going to do.
You know, this is tremendous, Tom. When you and I had a call the other day with the Reverend, and he showed all the people he had collaborated with, I was blown away. I mean, typically you'd get a handful and you're struggling to get other people on board. The fact that, you know, he had already got these people and all these tremendous and large entities involved already is a testament to his commitment. And so, again, I kind of end the way I started by saying that, you know, this is a wonderful endeavor that you have, Reverend. I was glad to hear you mention a few things. I just want to say that, you know, even with WRAP, you know, you have people like Tom and many others, folks like Mike Rothen's there, and you know, our new CEO, they're committed, you know, as Tom said, to de-escalation, some of whom have family members who suffer from dementia. So it's very personal for them in terms of why they understand the need. Even some folks who may not have even been in law enforcement, it resonates with them as to what they've seen across this country. You know, there are a plethora of videos that have been out there. Sadly, many of them are heart-wrenching when you watch them. But it just motivates these folks here. And when I saw this product, I was still there and saw this device. And most people in law enforcement tend to err on the side of being skeptical. And I got to tell you, what I thought about instantly was all the scenarios that either I had to address as a police commissioner or I'd personally been involved in, where I just said, man, oh man, if we had something that would have made it safer, for everybody involved. So when you collaborate in this way and you have these organizations out there that are committed, it's just a testament to police chiefs and elected officials and community leaders like yourself understanding the importance of working together to make this country safer for everybody involved.
And RAP, and particularly the BolaWrap device, is really an answer to a lot of demands in communities. Communities are demanding that law enforcement do everything that they can to equip officers to resolve conflicts, particularly with people who are mentally challenged or have some mental health challenges or episode. Communities across this country are demanding that law enforcement agencies give officers the resources that they need, and BolaWrap is certainly an answer to a lot of the demands for justice and fairness and alternatives that people in communities across the country are demanding in local neighborhoods and of their local law enforcement agencies. And you know, the question is often asked, why now? Well, I think we cannot wait until another tragedy divides our country the way George Floyd did. We have to do something right now, right away. There is an urgency for resolution and reconciliation. There's an urgency to address the demands of communities who are saying we want to be a part of challenges or solutions to the challenges with regard to policing and reductions of crime and making our communities safer. What the COVID-19 pandemic has done is really amplified and magnified some of the tensions that exist between police officers and communities. Because on the one hand, we expect police officers to go out and protect and serve, and on the other hand, they themselves are being exposed to the COVID-19 disease. And so the challenges are great, but we are greater. There is more that unites us than there is that divides us. And with BolaWrap's help, what National Faith in Blue Weekend will do is to provide a real solutions-focused mechanism for the American people to come together, to reason together, and to figure out what has to be done in their local community to be the change that they seek.
But, you know, very quickly, Reverend, you said, why now, right? And so I've not seen, and I'm sure you or Tom haven't either, an incident that so galvanized this country, particularly, you know, even in law enforcement, in the way that chiefs reacted so quickly to incidents that may have happened in a jurisdiction that, you know, that might not have occurred before. And so we've seen that. And I will tell you, without mentioning the big city, that, you know, having had a city that, you know, we were looking to partner with the BolaWrap, there was a little bit of reluctance. And this particular deputy chief said to me, we just cannot afford to have another incident, kind of similar to what you alluded to. And so they immediately signed on because they understood the need. The need is absolutely there. As you said, communities are demanding it, as they should. They have a right to.
Absolutely.
And we have an obligation as leaders, whether in or out of law enforcement, clergy, civic, what have you, to respond to those needs.
And I think from a corporate perspective from RAP, it's our obligation to partner with a group like National Faith and Blue Weekend, because it's about exposure, because we're asking police to do their jobs differently. This is a technology it's in its infancy. It's just getting out there. We're going to get a lot of exposure to that, but it's really about making these communities safe, getting police, as you said, Reverend, to talk with the members of their community and put the humanity back into those discussions, and using a tool that doesn't hurt people. And yeah, that's a step in the direction. It's not the only solution, but we feel as a corporate responsibility to participate in this and make sure law enforcement knows that that corporate is with them, that the communities are with them, the faith communities are with them. I think that's why this is such a critical weekend that we're being a part of. And it's not just one weekend. I mean, that's the highlight clearly, but this is going to be an ongoing initiative for a long time. I think it was Miss Reverend, but you had actually started this initiative even before the tragic incident of George Floyd, because this has been going on for a long time. And as I said at the start, it's easy to talk about the problems. It's very difficult to get people to act and come up with solutions, and want to commend you on this. We're excited to work with this. Our 30 minutes is almost up. So Reverend, if you have any last quick comments and for the group that's out there, and then we'll wrap it up.
I've said it before, I said it in the introductory video, there is no limit to the good that can be done when we work collaboratively. When the corporate sector and the business sector and the faith community, the community at large, come together with law enforcement and the government, there are no challenges that are too great. We can fix the challenges that we face in America today. We face more difficult circumstances. I'm reminded of one of my mentors, Congressman John Lewis, used to say, get in the way and get in good trouble. What we're doing with National Faith in Blue Weekend is we're bringing communities and law enforcement together to get into good trouble, because that and that alone is the way forward. We have got to do this. We have got to do it. And I ask that we continue to work collaboratively across our divides to figure out a pathway forward. And thank you, Tom, and thank you to WRAP for stepping up to the plate and helping us to make this a reality for our country.
Absolutely. We're happy to do it. As the commissioner said, I've been talking with him about how do we get involved, and I feel this is that first step. And hats off to you for pulling this together and getting groups that are just unprecedented to be working together. So we've run out of time right now. Again, I appreciate everybody's time this morning. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to end with a kind of a quick 1-minute video that's just some highlights of some recent things that have been going on at WRAP, and we'll be talking to everyone again very soon. Thank you. Good morning to everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I, like many others, we support you in supporting our law enforcement officers and providing safe communities. Clearly, more money is needed to buy less lethal enforcement types of tools like the what they call the BolaWrap.
Right.
So I thank you, Mr. President, for what you're doing, and I stand solid with you.
Thank you very much.
The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office used a new tool to arrest a suspected car thief. The driver got out of the car. That is when deputies deployed the BolaWrap restraint device. The driver was then taken into custody.
A suspect in a downtown Fresno stabbing put 2 people in the hospital before police were able to detain him. He was stopped using a BolaWrap.
His immediate response was to grab it, and by that time our takedown officers were on top of him, placed him on the ground safely, and took him into custody.
As he began to run, I already had the BolaWrap in hand. I went ahead and fired down at his legs.
The person may be threatening us with physical violence. He may have, or she may have, a stick or some type of a knife, and that will allow the officers, again, to not have to resort to such things as beanbags, 40 millimeters, or deadly force itself.
Even if we have one case we prevented lethal force from having to be used, it's worth the investment.